Hey guys, welcome back to another video with On Point Politics, your number one stop for all things polling and election analysis. And today we have ready to go on because we're going to be doing another fundraiser for SoCal Strategies. So make sure, guys, to hit the like button and to subscribe, and make sure to share this far and wide with everybody that you know, because we're going to probably be on for about 45 minutes to like an hour, kind of just talking about the election, but we're also going to be promoting SoCal's thing and whatnot, because we still have to raise more money. And I believe at some point next week, after we pull a state, we're going to do another final fundraiser. And that's when we're going to do like a reveal stream where like we basically release the poll on stream, and like me and Rep break down the numbers and stuff like that. And that'll be, I think we're going to do it on yours, or we're going to simulcast it where I'm on here and then you're on yours at the same time.
Yeah, I think we're gonna do that one on mine. You could probably simulcast it if you want.
Yeah.
But this, for those who don't know, we conduct polls, and we've conducted several because we understand that there's so few public polls. You have a lot of pollsters that are not releasing polls right now, and it's mainly because they don't really want to. I feel like a lot of people are scared to admit the reality that Donald Trump's the favorite, so they let these right-leaning pollsters in the aggregates, and they say, oh, well, the aggregate's actually fake because all the right-leaning polls show it, but the few left-leaning polls we've seen, they show the same thing, and those so-called right-leaning polls were more accurate than those mainstream media polls that we saw in 2016 and 2020, presidential years, which is what you should be comparing a presidential year like this one to other presidential years. And of course, it's going to be different. We don't know what the polling miss is going to be. We don't know if there's even going to be a polling miss, but we need to make sure that we inform the public properly, because you have the election mafia. These people, they pay tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to get a poll, and they don't know what they're doing. It's largely to fit a narrative. And, obviously we want Donald Trump to win, but that doesn't mean we release polls that just show Trump up. In fact, we polled Michigan. It's neck and neck, but we did find Harris narrowly ahead. And we've polled North Carolina, Pennsylvania a month or so ago, and Donald Trump was in the lead, but not by a ridiculous amount. But keep in mind, he has a lot more momentum now than he had back then. So, we'll see how it goes, but we've been conducting polls, and we have a GoFundMe. We're 22% of the way there. We would love to see how far we could get tonight, just because we've polled Michigan, we've polled Arizona. The Arizona sample was a little iffy. We'd like to poll it again, if possible, by the end of the election cycle. So we're talking about doing 5 state polls potentially. Right. We're talking about doing a final national poll, and all of that.
We're going to do it at the end of the month, unlike all these liberal pollsters that are posting theirs right now, which is super stupid.
And it's like, why are you doing a final poll right now? You should be waiting to do the final polls when you're closer to the election. Because let's say Trump wins like the popular vote, for example, and these people, they're cowardly dropping a final Harris +1, Harris +2. They could just say, well, we were polling back in October. We weren't dropping a final poll. And then the polling aggregate's going to be probably more flooded with right-leaning pollsters, and they're going to use that as a scapegoat leading up to the election to say, no, it's not actually, Trump's not actually ahead. And it's true, we got to disregard the polls and got to do what we got to do with turnout. And we've been doing a great job of it. We need to keep going, and we need to make sure we keep doing it. But it's like, yeah, it's just kind of a messy situation all around with the polling in this country. And that's why we're here, and that's why we have this fundraiser. The link should be in the pin chat. It should be down below. $5 helps. Even $5 can go a very long way. Last stream we raised roughly around $3,000 from you guys, and we appreciate that. But down the stretch, the polling, it's definitely to get on these aggregates.
Hold on, guys. I think he cut out for a second. Hold on. Let's bring him in again. Hold on. I don't know what just happened.
Just imagine them having to give us an A+ grade. These same people that have demonized any analysis that comes from anyone that's even remotely center right. Meanwhile, we see what they're posting and what they're advocating for, and they claim to be the arbiters of what is considered the biased truth or the unbiased truth or whatever. We know it. The polling industry is run by scumbags, and that's why we're here to save the day and to save polling. And if you, with your guys' help, hopefully we can get some fundraising numbers up in our GoFundMe tonight.
Yeah, by the way, did you post it in the community tab?
I posted the stream in the community tab, yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. So looking at this guy, so this is a chat question. So what do you think about the keys they say?
Well, I think they belong in the garbage. And it's true, because every single thing you point to within the keys that Lichtman says is going good for Harris, if he actually took public opinion into account, which he has in the past, back in like 1992 with the economy, you'd realize that no, Harris does not have a strong economy. People are voting based on the economy as their top issue. People are also very upset with the current state of the economy, more so than they were in 2020 by a long shot with the pandemic. It's honestly starting to mirror, 2008 in terms of the public perception. Maybe not as egregious, but still, you look at that and it's like the economy. You talk about security, like these are top issues that people want. They don't even take into account the border. They use arbitrary metrics for GDP growth. And in the past, like in 92, we saw Lichtman go out of his way to say, okay, well, the economy is bad because public perception of the economy is bad, and that's what matters. If he applied that today, he wouldn't give Harris those keys. And there's no foreign policy successes. I don't know where he thinks that came from. He doesn't think Afghanistan is a failure. He does claim there's a failure. I don't even know what the failure is. I mean, there's a lot of failures you could say, but there's so many things that are happening that the keys just can't grasp. And you have an inconsistent interpreter of the model who over the years has changed the rules on a whim. That's not somebody who is really just interpreting an objective model. And even if he did that, Donald Trump would win. So that's kind of what you have with the keys.
Right. Yeah, no, it's absolutely ridiculous. Like in his own book, like it's man. It's just that like right now, like for example, like in his book from 1992, his key for the GDP literally states like, oh, based on public perception, it can change. It literally says it in his book. And then now he's just not using it from his book. Like it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So I really do think that it is very, very flawed. And yes, it's been good in the past because he was able to objectively use it, but he can't do that anymore because now he's TDS ridden. So that's the problem, because he'll cling to his track record for the life of him. But now when you have a guy that's like TDS ridden, which in 2016, a lot of his keys that should have been like true were false, and some keys that were false should have been true. Like it's just completely backwards. Like for example, like the no third party key was true in his model for 2016 when it really should have been false. And there was like a few other keys that were like going false but should have been true. Like he got lucky with the Trump prediction like big time when he used his keys. He got very lucky.
Yeah, and again, even with like the third party key, like that's one of the keys he had turned for Trump's benefit. But even using that model and how he was trying to do it this year, he had the third party threshold at 10% now. Gary Johnson was never getting 10%. He was never polling at 10%. So it's whichever way he wants to interpret it. The guy has just kind of lost his marbles. He doesn't predict elections the correct way. He doesn't predict them on a map. He doesn't predict margins. And when they had, I think his prodigy son or whatever do like the map, from what I've seen, he has blue.
Yeah, Florida's blue apparently. Hold on, guys. He froze again.
So there's clearly an issue on that front.
No, yeah, it's like, yeah, I mean, imagine having blue Florida when we all know it's not going to go blue. I mean, it's just not going to go blue. So to me, I think it's kind of ridiculous, actually, that they would be doing that anyway. And we look here, it says, let's go over here. Is Super Chat not available? So guys, so essentially right now, we turned off Super Chats for this particular stream because we want to have you guys donate to the GoFundMe. A lot of the times when we do streams like this, we get Super Chats and we appreciate them, but we rather them go to the GoFundMe because the super chats come like a month later. Like literally any super chat you send right now will not go to the stream to the polls at all. Like I'll literally be getting it at the end of November. Like there's no point. And so pretty much that's why we disabled super chat. So if you were trying to super chat, we appreciate it, but unfortunately we can't really have that right now because we want to have it focused on the GoFundMe here. Let's see if anybody's pitched in so far.
Yeah,
so
I'd encourage people to donate to the GoFundMe. Even $5 goes a long way. We definitely want to get those donations up as much as possible, just because of the fact that this is essentially the home stretch, the final round of polling, and there's very few polls that were released, by the way, this past week. And we have a team of data experts. They know what they're doing in terms of collecting the data, weighing the data, and putting a result out in the public domain. And we got to keep doing that and make sure that we're able to try to pinpoint the accuracy of this race. Now, polls are not necessarily going to be 100% accurate. For example, our Arizona poll sample, the Republican sample we got, was a little bit too liberal. We'd like to do another Arizona poll, but in order to do that, it does cost money. These polls are not cheap. They cost around, $1,000 a poll, and we outline the costs and everything. We have a lot of transparency for that. It's on the GoFundMe, but just any amount helps out significantly. If you donated before, you can donate again if you would like. If you can afford to, we'd appreciate as much support as we possibly can get. But that's the main point of the stream, is to get as many people on board to donate to the GoFundMe.
No, yeah, and that's kind of what we're here to do. And we're going to be talking about like the 2024 election and stuff like that. But guys, if you are on X, which a majority of you on here are on X, make sure to go ahead. I posted the link of the GoFundMe on there. So if you want to go ahead and, just donate even $5, like Rep said, I mean, that helps quite a bit. What we'll do is we'll kind of talk about the election. Okay, so we got our first dono. Somebody donated about 10. So that's the first one that we got for today. It hasn't came in yet, but let's go ahead and try to see who it was. Somebody did donate like 10. What we're going to do is we're actually going to, last time we kind of like would talk about stuff and then we get distracted with new donos. So what we're going to do is like, we're going to have like people in the chat, like say, okay, if you want to donate, we'll remind everybody like every few minutes just for like new reviewers and stuff. But what we're going to do is we're kind of just going to talk about the election and whatnot, and then we'll kind of like go over like what we got afterwards pretty much. So that's kind of what we'll do. So right now, oh, Vlad's musical, that was who that was. Thank you. We appreciate it. So looking at the race right now, and again, it's the fact that Donald Trump always catches up at the end. He always catches up at the end of the race. And now he's catching up earlier than before. Usually he catches up later, but he's actually catching up right about now this time. And when we look at the map that's underestimated him twice, this is what you get when you go on the homepage of Real Clear Politics. You get a Trump 312 map to Harris's about 226. And in 2020, depending on the site, you would have had Texas going blue, Florida would have been blue, North Carolina would have been blue,
Alaska, Ohio.
Yeah, the likely margins for Joe Biden in the Rust Belt, Arizona, Nevada. Nevada wasn't even a competitive state. Like, it was just absolutely ridiculous. And then it ended up being like one of the closest elections ever. Like, it ended up being super duper tight in 3 battleground states. And now we see that Donald Trump is now ahead in all of the swing states in the polling that has underestimated him twice already. And it's like, if there's no polling error in the RCP aggregate, he wins. Like, literally, if there's no polling error, he wins. But the chance of there not being a polling error is basically like 0%, in my opinion, because they're screening out. And even we do this because we're like SOCALSTRATEGIES is the one in charge of creating the likely voter model screening and whatnot. And what's happening is, and it's not on purpose, guys, it's just the way the likely voter screens are done. When a voter has only voted like once or twice, they don't get as many points for being on a likely voter screen. So what happens if there's like a lower propensity first-time Trump voter that comes out to vote, they may get screened out of the screening. That's what happens. And so that alone with us doing that, I can't imagine how many pollsters are missing those type of people, and they're going to be a big problem. And the way we know that they're going to be off by to an extent, and even to an extent ours might be off in one way or another, I'd assume they lean a little bit more left just because we are using an online panel, and those do tend to be a little bit more liberal. Even Pollfish has like a really conservative young demographic and like a really liberal plus 65 vote. And the plus 65 vote's always more liberal, or it has a higher amount of the vote share in elections. So if we underestimate Trump's support with them, it's going to cause a decent polling error. So we're just trying to get the polls out there because we want somebody that has the transparency and the honesty to at least do it with people that are trying to provide transparent polling to everybody. So that's like the main reason why we want to be doing this. So when we look at this now with RCP, he's up like literally in all the swing states. And this is not what you want to see in the Democratic side like 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the election. I don't even think it's 20 days anymore. I think it's like 18 now. We're 18 days away from the election, 19 days away. And in the nightly report, this is what Kamala Harris has to see when the day is over. I mean, it's just absolutely insane that he's even up in the battlegrounds, like, or even winning period in the polling map at the end of the cycle. I mean, that's just absolutely insane. And so right now, we're just trying to gauge the best we can where the race is. And, you know, we include, for example, like my state and national aggregates, we include SoCalStrategies in there. And then I aggregate the polls as to how I usually do them. But we just kind of want to give SoCal a chance to really like put out transparent polling out there for everybody, because I think that's missing in the industry. And if you notice, the people who tend to be more accurate tend to be more transparent or have YouTube channels where they talk about their polling like all the time.
Exactly.
And, and it's funny if you realize that. And the people that are super inaccurate, you'll never know who the damn pollster is. Like you'll never see. I don't know what the pollster of Quinnipiac looks like. I don't know the head pollster of like the New York Times. I think it's Nate Cohen, but it's like he never does a YouTube video. He never shows his face. It's like there's a reason, because they're ashamed that they've been wrong so many times, like over and over and over again, and get embarrassed. And so
yeah, it's the smug tweets on Twitter, and eventually slowly realizing that you make a mistake. That's all these people do. I call him Nate Cope because that's all he does. There's plenty of these other pollsters. If you remember those dot maps, and I want to have dot maps as well for some of these other states that we're going to do, because the dot maps are actually cool because you can see where the people are coming from. Are you going to pick up some, blue voters for some reason in these rural areas, in places they don't really live, and you're going to miss the white working class third shift factory worker who's going to be voting overwhelmingly for Donald Trump but might not answer a poll. Like, we don't want to make sure that we're able to see through that, so we're able to wait for that, because those dot maps from the New York Times in 2020, when they had Biden winning the Rust Belt, all the states by 10 points, and then he was even up in like Iowa and Ohio, you can't exactly have that. That's what we call malpractice, because it's just, every miss is in one direction from these people. It's never the other way around. You have some right-leaning pollsters that have missed the other way, but these people at the national level in particular, but the state levels are even far worse in many cases. There are these big misses from these mainstream media pollsters. So we need people that are going to look at the data, that are going to be honest, that are going to be transparent, and we need them out there polling, and that's why we have the fundraiser. So again, if you guys want those polls, you guys want the comprehensive analysis, more videos, again, the GoFundMe is in the pin chat. It's something that I would encourage everybody check out. If you want to send even just $5 or $10, it helps. If everyone in chat sent $10, we'd be able to do 2 polls. So, keep that in mind. We'd like to get as much support as we possibly can, and I'll keep posting the link periodically, but that's where you guys can donate, even though it's the pin chat as well. So,
right. And what we're going to do here is we're actually going to see something right now, because I think it's very interesting what's kind of happening. And man, I hate it when those like bots on like X, like they just pop out of nowhere and they're like, hey, go donate here. I hate it when they do that. But when we look here, guys, Eric Daugherty, I believe that's how you pronounce his name.
Yeah.
He just announced that Donald Trump is going to be going to none other than the state of New Hampshire. He's going to be going to New Hampshire at some point. At the end of the month, he's going to New Hampshire. Now, why is this a big deal? It's because right now, it seems like the campaign must be pretty confident to let him be going to a state like New Hampshire. I mean, that's a state that in 2016 he went to once or twice a few months before the election. In 2020, I think he went once, maybe even. I don't even know if he went.
He went a couple times in 2020, but I think it just speaks volumes to the internals because,
Right.
it's not, I understand New York is for House races and because it's, Trump's thing. Him campaigning in Montana, that was obviously because of these, down ballot races, the Senate race there.
Yeah.
But when you look at New Hampshire, Trump's location, besides like the rallies in places like New York City, they've been more tame. He's not doing the 2020 strategy of he'll go to Minnesota 3 times when he doesn't even get within 7 points. Not really the best use of resources. But now down the home stretch, they realize maybe there is something because those New Englander type voters, they're not familiar with Kamala Harris, and maybe she is struggling more than expected with these white college educated voters, which is supposed to be her strong demographic. And if she can't even do as well with Biden among that demographic that's been moving left, she's losing with everybody. The Democrats are losing with every single demographic, and she's losing it to Donald Trump, somebody they've spent all this time, the past 8-9 years, painting as the worst guy to ever walk the face of the earth, and he's more popular than ever, and he might, try to go for some of these places. I'm a little, intrigued at the prospect of New Hampshire. I think Maine might be easier. I think Virginia might be easier. But if he really is going to go to New Hampshire, maybe there is something that the internal polls are showing that the public polls are not exactly showing.
Yeah, and if we could go to New Hampshire's aggregate, and this is something really interesting that I think is kind of weird as to what's going on with the polling right now. But the last poll to come out of New Hampshire was conducted from October 2nd to the 8th. That
Yeah.
was the last time they polled it. And if you were polling it a bajillion times when Biden was the candidate and you found him down a bunch of times, why'd you stop polling it when Harris became the candidate? I mean, once you start polling a state and it becomes a battleground, even if there's a candidate shift, you should still poll it because maybe there is something there that voters are just not seeing. And so I think it's important for them to still poll those. And this is something that I'm going to be mentioning on the show on Monday with Valuetainment. It's just that. I mean, yeah, Virginia, New Hampshire, like those, New York, like they just haven't polled them as much as when Biden was in the race. And I think it's because they got the green light to be allowed to poll Biden badly. I think that's really what it is.
And response bias as well, possibly, because it's true. Biden supporters had no enthusiasm. Harris is, she was chosen, I guess, as the energy because, she's different. The Democrat base, they'll, buy the astroturfing. They're NPCs. But even then, we know how these rallies go. They bus a lot of people in. The rallies don't always look like the communities they're in. Some of the GPS tracking data allegedly has shown that a lot of these people that are there have been to multiple rallies that she's recently been to, at least compared to the Trump attendees at the Trump rallies. But when you're talking about these events, now she's downsizing. She was going to hold a rally at an arena that Trump held a rally at a couple of months ago in Grand Rapids. She chose to do it at a very intimate event, and then she also made a lot of blunders at that rally too. It was kind of a bizarre thing to witness. But what we really understand is that the enthusiasm is gone. It's not there. Maybe she got some soft support that she's losing. She's kind of, she rose up to 48, 49% in the polls. She's not able to get to 50. And that's kind of an issue that she's going to have because it shows that, it's not like, she'll gain and then those people might be undecided, then come back. No, her peak is not exactly where she wants to be, especially with Trump polling better than he's ever polled in a fall of an election year by, just about 3 points compared to his last high point.
No, yeah, 100%. But I mean, at this point, really, if you want me to be honest, I really think that at this point in time, in terms of the states and like where we kind of are right now, I really think this is where we are in terms of the states at this point in time. This is subject to change, but I think that right now, New Mexico, Minnesota, Virginia, New Hampshire, Maine, if I had to choose what way they were going, regardless of my model, I would still say they're going Democrat. Even Minnesota, I know in Minnesota, my model has it flipping, but again, I have Trump winning the popular vote by numbers that are similar to like Rasmussen, Alice Intel, because my aggregate tracks the accurate pollsters scores and looks at that kind of stuff, and then it grades everybody mathematically. And so the pollsters that were accurate, that have a higher sample size, that have more polls in the aggregate, they get a much higher weight. So like even when we removed Alice Intel from the aggregate, because of the fact that it was over a month old in the aggregate actually still showed Donald Trump up by a similar lead to what it was before. I believe before we removed Alice Intel, it's like 3.8, and then now he's up by 3.5, because all the polls are essentially aggregating the party ID. And I've played around with the 2020 aggregate, and now I'm able to get Biden plus 4.9 with all of the battlegrounds that are and the electorate that I have for 2020, which is using Alice Intel's as electorate. When you do it for 2020, Biden's like at 50.4 and Trump's like at 45.5, something like that. Like they're not that far off from their final aggregates. And there's actually less undecideds right now than there was in the final day of the 2020 aggregate. There's currently less undecideds in the polling, which I find pretty interesting.
Yeah. And I think that there's an argument to be made that the polling error may not be as, able to be as big as it was in a lot of these places compared to 2020, at least as things stand right now, just because there are fewer undecided voters in the mix. I mean, when you look at the national average and it's 49 to 48, like there's not a lot of room for, I guess you would say, either candidate to grow. Because Trump at 47.9, obviously there's going to be third parties in the mix. They're not going to poll as high as they are in some of these, third party aggregates. Maybe you get 2% nationally that go that way. So how many people are really undecided? Probably around 1% or less of the people that vote right now are undecided. I feel like those voters probably end up, at least the lion's share of them, end up in Trump's column. But the main takeaway is, persuasion's important, and Trump has, he's got a lot of policies and advertisements that work on that. But in terms of this election, it's about the base turnout and also who can turn out the low propensity voters better than the other candidate. And so far, whether you're in North Carolina, whether you're in Virginia, whether you're in, we don't have a lot of intel out of Pennsylvania on that front, but just looking at Arizona, the data so far out of Arizona is insane, because we talk about how many voters separated Trump and Biden in 2020 in Arizona, 11,000 of them. So you already have more of a net gain in the early vote already of Republicans who never voted before compared to Democrats who never voted before. And it's not a perfect, 1-to-1, but if that holds and if that keeps up down the stretch, it's going to be very difficult. Already she's already lost Arizona, assuming the rest of the electorate shakes itself out. And that's kind of an issue. And I think we're going to see lower turnout. But I also think lower turnout is not going to help the Democrats because they have low propensity voters too, and they turned out a lot of them based on COVID in 2020, and that voter typically voted early, voted by mail. You think they'd be voting by mail again if they're going to vote, right? And a lot of those people didn't show up in the midterms either, for what it's worth, and they're in a lot of trouble if they can't get that 80 million. They're going to need something close to 80 million, maybe not 80 million to win the election. I don't see it right now. It's very difficult given the early data, given the polling. There's not a single thing right now that looks good for Kamala Harris. And even things that I was worried about, like maybe those low propensity voters are not showing up, maybe would be cannibalizing these votes. That's not what's happening. And seeing the goalposts move with these people in the election mafia is pretty funny. It's pretty entertaining. It's glorious. And again, there's nothing that gets them angrier than our polls, which is why I recommend people donate to the GoFundMe. Once again, it's important.
We did a $25 dono just 2 minutes ago. So Aaron Willis So far we raised about 35, but guys, I would really recommend you guys donate, like Rep was saying, and you can continue if you want.
Oh yeah, thank you, Aaron, for the 25. I appreciate the donation there, and we definitely need as much help as we can get. I'm probably going to be putting some of my own money in on the polling as well, but it definitely helps out a lot, and we're going to be able to conduct a lot more polls if we are, able to be well funded and the polling project's well funded. We're going to have more polls that are going to be able to be produced and conducted and that sort of thing. So we gotta make sure that if you guys are just joining us, which we have over 200 people watching, I'd encourage people to check out the GoFundMe. You don't need to have an account to donate. You could donate anonymously if you'd like. You don't have to put a name down. It's all secure and it goes directly to the polling fund. It's transparent. And if you don't get if we don't produce the polls, you can get the money back, but we're going to produce the polls, so it's not going to matter. But it helps out a lot. And we're going to be hopefully, I'm sure I'll do it on my channel. I'm sure you'll give your own interpretation on your channel. But these polls that we conduct, we're going to be producing videos going over them, going in depth, talking about the certain regions that are going to dictate this election cycle. And it's just good to have more people in the field. And it's funny because these polls are not that expensive compared to other polls, but they're probably, I have a feeling, just because of our expertise, they're going to be more accurate. And that's kind of what we're focusing on here.
No, yeah, 100%. And we actually see here, people in the chat are talking about PA early vote. That's huge, guys. Like their firewall is down quite significantly compared to 2020. Like not even close. Like their firewall is super duper down from then. It's
did you see a certain data analyst who's been
don't tell me
very
owner.
No. Well, basically another version of him from some guy who like tries to pretend like he understands Pennsylvania and he really doesn't.
Who is it? Voting trends or no?
No, it's the Josh something. I don't know. We'll just call him Josh something. And he said 390K, and then I see all these liberals in the replies, and then they come to my replies and start saying, oh, we're almost at 390K, and it's like, that's not going to be enough. You guys had like 600,000 in the midterms, which is a different electorate, a lower turnout electorate, and that number already, they're not going to even hit that in the requests. The requests are starting to go down in terms of their net advantage. They're favoring us because we're requesting more. And then the goalposts move to, oh, they're not going to return. And then we're starting to return them. The returns are going to catch up. Our return rate very well could end up being higher than their return rate. We could be in the 30s. So they say, okay, now maybe it's 500,000. Which is crazy because you think they'd lower it, but even then they're forced to raise it from 400,000 to 500,000. But they also claim that we're cannibalizing our votes in the same process, which was the same thing that we claimed back in 2020. And I'm not saying I claimed that, but there were a lot of people that claimed it as to why, it's not going to matter. But a lot of those voters were new voters. And a lot of the voters now are new voters and low propensity voters that are voting early, and they're voting for us. And that's a problem, especially because that's the preferred method of voting for Democrats. And it's true, they're going to have a lead. They're going to build a firewall.
Two more donos, Nancy for 10, and we have David for 50. Thank you very much. So we've raised so far pretty much about $100 on stream so far, guys. And I think we may be going for, we might go for like another 10, 15 possibly.
Yeah, that's fine.
So guys, we are going to be ending in about 10 or 15. So if you guys would like to go ahead and donate, it would be greatly appreciated. I think from now on, when I do streams and when I do videos, I'm going to be plugging it like a lot more just because we are in the final stretch. And then what we'll do is we'll pull a state and then we'll do another fundraiser on your end. And then we'll kind of go from there. But it would be greatly appreciated if you guys could donate right now, just because we are trying to get, we're about to have our final hurrah and trying to get a lot of the money raised. And so that will definitely be appreciated if you guys can go ahead and do that. And we're going to be, this channel, I still got to go over the Arizona and Michigan polling. I may even do that tomorrow. I have yet to gone over them.
We're also closing in on 100 donations. We're only 12 away. We've got 200 people in chat. Just $5 helps a lot. If you'd like to donate more, you can. But there was something in chat that I saw about cannibalization dies when you look at Virginia. Exactly. And of course, there's going to be some cannibalization. It's not a bad thing, though, if those votes are banked, because maybe that person gets sick and they're not going to be able to vote. And if we cannibalized our votes by that logic in Nevada, we would have had Adam Laxalt in the Senate. And we'll see what happens in Nevada early voting. But looking at Arizona in 2022, the disaster, looking at Nevada's disaster in 2022, that was more of a natural disaster than a shenanigan disaster, or maybe both. I don't know. I haven't seen enough evidence of that, but you never know. You don't want to. I don't want to give them too much of the benefit of the doubt. But what we know is that those voters, those Republicans, see what happened, and they're going to be more likely to vote early. And hopefully they're more likely to get other people to take with them and vote early. And that's another thing. If you know somebody, you're hanging out with somebody, you know they're registered to vote, maybe slightly apolitical, maybe they like Trump, but you don't really think they're voting. You could always just take them and say, hey, want to go vote for Trump today? Yeah, go take them and go. And because you have election month, you have that opportunity to do that. You wouldn't have that. I mean, like, it is true. I'm against election month. It does make, predicting elections maybe a little bit easier in some places. But if you read into it too much, it can complicate things this early, but it's not, that early. But it is true that people need to take advantage of it while it exists. I would rather have it be, one day, whatever. I get it. Maybe you have a small window of early voting like the week before, but we're in election season, and I think it works to our favor if we use it to our favor, because everybody knows Trump. Everybody knows everything about Trump. They don't know much about Kamala Harris, but she's also at a point where that like generic Democrat thing is wearing off at the right time, and it's wonderful that that's the case.
And it's super annoying. Yeah. And it's super annoying that when pollsters are like, oh, a generic Republican versus a generic Democrat. Like, what? Like, I don't think people realize that when they poll that, like, literally when somebody thinks of their generic Republican or their generic Democrat, they just think of their favorite Republican and favorite Democrat. So it's literally like the reason why you get like a 60-40 lead in either direction when you poll a generic Republican versus like Biden, or a generic Democrat versus Trump, is because you're literally getting like every Democrat in the whole country, like politician versus one other candidate. Like, that's what's happening when you do that, because you literally get like each person like just thinks of their favorite Republican or Democrat politician when that happens. And so that's why polling stuff like that really doesn't make a lot of sense. And then everybody seems to be confused about the midterms. Guys, the midterms are 50 different ballots with 50 different sets of candidates in 50 different states. Like, I don't know.
And more than that, too, when you go to the Senate and governors. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's more than it is more than that. But that's the easiest way to explain it. It's 50 different sets of candidates in 50 different states. But in a presidential year, you have 50 sets of ballots with the same two candidates. So to correlate midterms with presidential elections is really, really silly. I mean, you can use them to see, okay, if there's lower turnout, what happens? And we find the same people that voted for Obama in 08 and 012 now vote for Trump, and those same people don't turn out in the midterms. That's why Republicans in the 2010s and the 2014, they won massively, because they had a lot of low propensity voters that didn't come out that were voting Democrat. And then now with Trump, it's the reverse. It's literally the exact opposite of that. It just so happens to be that college educated voters used to be more Republican back then. So when no low propensity voters would come out, plus the college educated vote being more Republican leaning, that's how you got those like Republican blowouts. But now that Democrats lean more left, what happens is now when you don't have the base come out, it's still actually like an even map. I mean, if you look at the Senate map, it kind of looks like a presidential map. And it's with some exceptions, but it kind of does look like a regular map in some ways. But like, for example, guys, like, I just want to say something. Like, the Rust Belt states have not voted separately from each other ever since 1988 and 1976. Those are the only
at the presidential level too.
Yeah.
And that was Ford. In 76, Michigan was because of Ford being from Michigan more so than anything else.
And then like 1988, what happened with Dukakis there? Because that's pretty interesting.
Wisconsin is kind of weird. The driftless area is kind of hard to explain, but it is true that these states do typically vote similarly. And there's going to be aberrations. For example, I wouldn't be shocked if Michigan goes blue, but Trump sweeps the rest of the swing states because Michigan is typically more blue than some of these other places. But you have a lot of white working class voters, and you have a lot of Catholic voters, white Catholics. You have a lot of Polish, a lot of Germans in certain places in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania.
Alrighty then. So we got a $500 dono from James Yingling. Thank you very much, James.
James, thank you, James. Appreciate it. That's like a half a poll. I think it's a little bit more than that. But yeah, James, definitely that's a big big help to us. So we do appreciate it, James.
Yeah, guys, like, look, there's people out there that want these things clearly. We'll show it on the screen just so you can see that it did come in. It is a legit, like, see, look right here. James Yingling just donated 500. So thank you very much for that. We really, greatly appreciate it. But guys, go ahead and donate. It's in the pin chat. It's in the description down below as well. And we need as much help as possible. I mean, if we could hit 100 before the stream ends, like, that would be great.
We're one away from 90. So if someone wants to be the lucky number 90 or ideally help us cross 4,000, that would be huge. Another thing to mention about we talk about the Catholic vote as well. Kamala Harris is doing everything possible to lose as many Catholics as possible. The Al Smith dinner not being there, it was worse that I think it was worse that she sent in a video
I think too. Yeah, I think it was worse that she sent in a video because it wasn't even her being funny. It was somebody else that was trying to be funny, and it didn't. They weren't funny.
Yeah,
and it didn't work. Mike C said, "How come SoCal showed Trump down one in Michigan?" Look, man,
well, hold on. Let me say it was not Trump in the poll was down by less than a point. It rounds to a point. It was down by like 0.5, 0.6. Why did it show Trump down? Well, it's because it's going to be a very close state, and there are still some undecideds. And even looking into the poll, there's a reason to believe it's underestimating him because of the white working class sample that we did get didn't seem to be in line with the original expectations or past exit polling data. So it's very possible we oversampled some, liberal white working class voters, and in comparison to who's going to show up.
Right, and this is the thing, guys. Like what Richard does, like Richard Barris, the People's Pundit, that's what when things work out well and we can fundraise a lot more money for 2028 or even the midterms, I would like to be able to, because obviously this was sort of a last minute thing for this year, but like as 2023, or I believe 2025 is in progress, we're gonna put up. My plan is to put up like a big GoFundMe where for the whole year it'll just be running. And we'll kind of build up a war chest for polling. So when we get to the midterms, we're actually able to stratify certain groups because that's what Richard does. Richard builds quotas and stratifies certain groups and samples a certain amount. And that's how he's been able to get so close in a lot of state races and even like national races. He's even gotten pretty close because he's able to stratify certain groups. So because when you like weigh a poll, it shouldn't be that you're waiting like your waiting like numbers shouldn't be anything higher than like a 2 or something like that. Like it should not be affecting it that bad. And I've even seen that like when I aggregate my state polling, like I don't have that at all. When I do my state aggregates or my national aggregates, like my weighting, damn, there's a name for it. I forgot what it was, but it's like weighting coefficient, I'm going to call it, should not be anything higher than a 2. And so what happens is you have liberal pollsters where they weigh their poll and it's like they want to weigh for a more liberal sample, and then they end up their weighing coefficients like way higher than it should be. So what SoCal does is he's trying to get a sample that's decent, and he's not trying to like skew the poll one way because like we could say the electorate's going to be like a certain thing, and if we get like a liberal result with Harris up, we could sway it to where it comes out of Trump +3, but then other demographics are going to look funny. So SoCal's the one responsible for conducting the poll, setting the demographics beforehand and the weights beforehand. So when the poll's done, he can just process it, and that's what comes out the end. It is what it is. And again, guys, Pollfish has very weird age demographics in terms of their, polling. Like it's known that Pollfish's panel has a 65 plus very liberal vote there. And they also have an extremely conservative, like 18 to 29 vote category. Like it's just weird. Some polling panels have different types.
Yeah, and we've seen it a lot actually.
Yeah, and so we're trying our best to account for that. Did you see on his stream, Richard's stream, that he showed like a panel, and it's supposedly Reuters, and when they pulled the damn Senate race,
Yep.
Ruben
Gallego and other Ruben Gallego.
Yeah, it's the second Ruben Gallego. Guys, a literal professional, high quality poll is going out there, literally putting the two top candidate options for the Senate race to be Ruben Gallego and Ruben Gallego. So when you see Harris getting a plus 16 in a poll, or like, no, not a plus 16 for Harris, a plus
Lake,
15 for Gallego, that's why, because they don't put her name on the ballot in the thing. And on top of that, we also see, and apparently Richard was talking about how there's no ID for it. So you can literally share it to whoever you want. You could share it to your friends if you wanted to. So this stuff like that does not happen with SoCal Strategy.
We got a 90. We actually got a 50 and a 90. 50 from Nassim and David. David comes through, another 90. Thank you, David. We're at 91 donos. We hit 4,000. That's huge for, last minute stream. But yeah, we're gonna do more fundraisers for sure. We're gonna be doing more fundraisers. And again, guys, I encourage you to even $10 goes a long way. If everyone here sent 10, we definitely would be able to conduct like 2 polls off of that, a little bit more.
Yeah, so. Literally. Like and actually everybody from X too, because there's like about 700. Yeah, if everybody right now that's watching, if you all donated, everyone that's watching right now, if you all donated 10, we'd actually probably reach the goal. We'd probably reach it, get really, really close. So if everybody in here just donated 10, if you can, literally all 774 of you in here, including the ones on X, if you guys all donated $10, we would literally reach the goal tonight. So whoever can donate, it would be greatly, greatly, greatly appreciated. So yeah, guys, I mean, it's just stuff like that won't happen with SoCal Strategies because we trust them to do that. And it's like, that's literally breaking like certain like AOPOR. What's the name of them? It's like the transparency rules and stuff like that. Like that's literally breaking like certain like polling rules that in order for you to be on like a polling site like 538, you have to pass all the rules. Oh, somebody donated. Oh, a super sticker. I was like, how? I turned it off, but I guess I didn't turn off super stickers. Bad Boy Automotive for 2. Thank you.
Again, yeah, we did turn. I did tell you to turn them off because it is true that we appreciate the donations, but for the fundraiser streams, we get a lot of people typically like to send in, oh, here's money for the poll via super chat, but we don't get the super chat revenue until after the election's over.
Yeah,
so it's and YouTube takes a cut.
Well,
and yeah,
eventually we will be able to take those on stream like later on for like later years. And if Trump gets in, there'll be no tax on tips.
There you go.
Applies to super chats too. So eventually, if Trump gets in, that won't be a problem anymore.
I think it's part of it. I think part of it is like YouTube just taking, but it is true that we'll keep more of the super chats from what I can understand.
Whoa, okay, we got a $500 dono again.
Really?
Yup, it's at 4,594. So we got another $500 dono. I wonder who it was. Let's see. I wonder who it was. Oh, we got a 100 or what? No.
Yeah,
we got a 30. So wow,
the cavalry of donations is pouring through at the
I don't know what's going
the
on.
end of the show.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Last minute, everybody came through last minute. I mean, we appreciate it, guys. I was low key worried. I was like, damn, like we're 30 minutes in, and there's only $30 in here. I was like, oh. But man, yeah, everybody came through last minute, so we greatly appreciate that, and we'll definitely be more prepared for another fundraiser. And we're going to be doing a lot more of these, by the way, because we got to raise as much for SoCal as like humanly possible. So let's see who went through with these. Man, someone shared the stream because I don't know what just happened.
Oh, James again. James.
Another 500. Oh my goodness. Okay, is that Mr. Beast like hidden in the shadows or something? What's going on here? So James came through again. Thanks, man. And then Oscar. Oh, Oscar Gonzalez. That sounds okay. No, that's not my uncle. No, that sounded like a family member.
I think that name I think is sent before in fundraisers, but we also have 10 from Jack and 5 from Clayton. By the way, we're 5 away from 100. So if we could just even get, whatever the minimum is, five people sending $5 would be able to get to our goal instantly, at least for the stream, is to get 100 donations. So we're 5 away.
We
so
basically funded a whole poll.
Yeah, a little bit more than that, I think. I think James funded a whole poll.
No, yeah, James basically funded the whole poll. So that's great. Oh, another 10 from Luke Moore. Thank you very much. I think we'll probably try to stream for like a little bit more, actually, since we did raise like a bit more. So we greatly appreciate it. And with Reps fundraiser stream, what we'll do is we'll poll a state, and then we're going to like drop the poll on stream, and like I'll be on it. Rep will be on it. We'll try to get SoCal on it, and that'll be a big one. And I'll simulcast it here too. But that'll be a good one. We'll probably reach our goal for that one at that point. But even after that, I think we should still try doing another one just to be able to get a little more. So if we want to do like a big national, because honestly, if we could hit a goal like for the next one, I think we should try to actually hit like, I think we should try to raise like a decent amount for like a national, because I like to get, I think for the national, I want to try to get a good sample size, and I'm going to help SoCal like stratify all the samples and stuff like that. I'm going to try to raise a lot for him, so he's actually like able to stratify, because you can do it on Pollfish, but it's like if you want to single out like a demographic, it actually becomes more expensive. I don't know why. That's like the stupidest thing in the world.
Because you have to like over poll it to get a wider sample. I think that's part of it. But another thing about
I would like for him to get an accurate sample there. So
I'd like to have, if we can get like 1,200, at least 1,200 likely voters, would cost a little bit more.
Oh, Anonymous sent 20. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anonymous.
Out there, we're 3 away from 100 donos tonight, and this basically funded a whole poll pretty much, because the poll is like about 1,200 to 13. So at this point, for one of these polls, I think for like this one at least that we'll do now, which I think is going to be North Carolina. I think it's North Carolina, right?
Yeah, we're going to pull North Carolina now. I think Georgia probably is going to be around the same time, like this upcoming week, because I think Trump probably wins both of those states. I don't think we're like that going to try to pinpoint like a later poll in those places. But I think late October we'll be getting into Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, those two. We're going to skip Nevada because it doesn't seem like Nevada's going to be a state that's going to be decisive. We'd like to have it, but it's also a really tough state to poll. So I don't think we're going to really focus on that. But the other, those are kind of just the 4 that we need, because we've already done 2. And then we got the national poll. That's going to be the final national poll of the popular vote. We're going to see how accurate. I haven't made my final popular vote prediction. I've been pretty accurate every cycle, whether it's midterms or whether it's presidential. At the popular vote, I thought Hillary would win it by around 2, and she did in 2016 when I was 16. 2020, I said around 4, and that was way more accurate than most people. 538 saying 8-point Biden win. It's a joke, but I honestly, there's a chance. I think it's going to be like right now. I'm not ready to use the word popular vote win for Trump, but am I getting closer? Am I closer there than I was a week ago? Absolutely. And it depends how the next week goes, but Trump is that overwhelming favorite. People need to keep doing what they're doing.
One more dono for 100, and I think we got like a big one just now. So we funded a whole poll. So we raised about 1,500 on the stream.
Yeah, and we're 1 away from 1,000, or not 1,000, 100 donations. I don't think we're gonna get to 1,000.
Yep, we did it.
Oh, we did it?
Yep, we got it. So another dono just came through.
There we go.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we're waiting.
Jacob.
Man, huge slew of people just donated like last second. Okay, so it was Pamela Gray, Amy Patton, Jacob Robertson.
Yeah,
and Anonymous just donated. Alrighty then. So,
and even though we got 100, I encourage people to still, after the stream is over, check out the fundraiser, donate. We're going to be hopefully the dot maps, because we'd love to have the dot maps, and the more we get, the more we can kind of spend putting everything together, the more time that's going to eventually have to go into this. And it's going to be more comprehensive the more we get. And we've gotten quite a bit of it, of these donations, where we're close to a third of the fundraiser's total goal. And hopefully we're going to keep doing these, we'll do some of these poll reveals as well, because we're going to reveal during the fundraisers some of these results. And there's going to be videos I'm going to do, and you're going to probably do analyzing it in depth.
Right, yeah. And I think it honestly might be a little bit smarter to do that. So let's see. We got let's see here. Man, did you see the clip where Harris was like, actually, you're not, this is the wrong rally, after like a protester said like Jesus is Lord? Did you see that?
Yeah, and that's another thing that goes into this whole that's crazy, Catholic thing. She's just
she doubled down on the hating of Jesus Christ and Christians and Catholics.
Yeah. And it insults everybody.
Send a bad video, and then at a rally, when someone was like Jesus Lord, she said, you're in the wrong rally." Like, what? Like,
no, it's bad.
I realize that like a overwhelming majority of the country is like Christian believing. Like, I don't think she thinks that's the flex. I don't think she thinks that's the flex it is. There's a lot of Democrats who are very Christian or very Catholic, so it's like.
And people were concerned about like evangelical turnout because Trump doesn't want to, pursue any like abortion abolition at the national level. When you get people like Harris, it just, I don't even think she did it intentionally. I think she just heard somebody say something, but the optics of it are horrendous. And I don't think she can process it. She's just not fit for the presidency. How many times have we seen this? Because, I mean, she's basically been the president for the past 4 years, and you look at Trump's presidency and you look at essentially her presidency, that's what this election is. And when voters are upset with the status quo, where do the undecideds typically break? They typically break against the status quo, and you see it.
And that's the problem for her in the aggregate, because if she's at 48 and the undecideds break towards Trump, he's going to be leading the aggregate. And then the problem is
Morning Compost is going to say not so fast.
Oh, yeah, of course. Well, it is what it is. It doesn't matter, because in my aggregate, their weight is like a D+5 electorate. And so when we reweigh them, they come out to like a Trump lead almost all the time. And then when we do that for 2020, they go from like a Biden +11 to like a Biden +6 or 5. So I'm not even doing it to be facetious. It's just, whenever it's like Morning Compost or any of those polls that like don't post their crosstabs ever, I just assume that they weighed their electorate to D+5, and it actually works out pretty good for me. It actually ends up working out pretty well, believe it or not. So that's quite interesting. Well, it seems like we're going to be getting to the end of the stream here in a few minutes now. We did go for about an hour, and so we did raise like 1,500 on stream, literally. So we basically just funded an entire poll. We'll probably, I'll have SoCal wait until it reaches me, and then we'll just go ahead and we'll pull North Carolina. And then when we are done, instead of having SoCal post it, we'll hop on stream and we'll break down the numbers in real time for everybody to see. I think it actually might be smarter to do it that way, because it's like we'll promote it, and then the whole stream we're talking about the poll we did, and then we can just, it's just a full-blown promotion of the stream, or of the GoFundMe, like the entire time. And I'll be promoting it a lot more in my streams, guys. And guys, if you have a friend or anybody that's interested in this kind of stuff, that like wants to see honest and transparent people that are not going to put the same damn candidate 2 times on the damn ballot for the poll, make sure to donate. Make sure to donate. If you want a pollster that won't do stupid stuff like that, go ahead and donate, because we would greatly appreciate it. But I think we are coming to the end of the stream here. Thank you very much to everybody that donated. We greatly appreciate it. All of the money from before this stream was already used on the 2 polls that we did, because one of the polls, it was like a little bit more expensive, and then we did it slightly cheaper. So I think we ended up using pretty much we used all the money for the other 2 polls. And so this one will fund, we'll be funding North Carolina with everything from this stream. And then we'll be going on Rep's channel, and we'll simulcast on mine to do the breakdown of North Carolina. So if you guys did enjoy this stream, make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe if you want more content just like this. And we will see you guys very, very soon.
Yep. See ya.